Hello, everybody. Oh, camera's a little bit skewed, but that's fine. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to 3D Bootcamp. My name is Chelfe, and I will be your teacher today. I am a former lead Unreal artist and teacher and CADA student myself. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I have as recently as today done some commercial work as well, and life is good. Yeah. So, throw a chat in the chat. Throw where you're from, and let's hang out. Enjoy our time. Yeah. While you get to that, and while everything else catches up, today we're going to be animating. Now, I will admit that I'm no animator. I know how to animate. I know the technical aspects of it, and I can sort of get by. But I'm not going to get paid for it any days. Well, I got this. So, yeah. You should all have been given a link to a... Hello from Romania. Hi. You should all have been given a link to... what's it called? WeTransfer. That's the one. WeTransfer, where there is a little can that I have quickly modeled and thrown a texture on for you guys today and rigged up for animation. It's going to be a bit simpler than what we usually do, just, you know, 'cause keeping it simple is actually not a bad thing in the beginning. So, yeah. I hope all of you are ready and having fun. Hi from Argentina, living in Berlin, and in Spain at the moment. Wow, that's a bit of a... So, yeah, good. Good to see people from everywhere showing interest in 3D. It is one of those lovely things that doesn't really know borders a lot. It's, yeah, wherever there's work, wherever there's somebody that has a good idea, we'll be there. It doesn't really matter what aspect you're into. If you're into modeling, texturing, set dressing. Great. And also if you're into, like, I'm an Unreal dude, so I do Unreal Engine a lot. And right now, both with virtual production, with more and more AAA studios and smaller studios getting into Unreal Engine, it means that a lot of the time there's more things to be done. So, all right. So, hello everybody. I think we've gotten greetings through. Then let us go into 3D. Hello! So, this is what your Blender file should look at. Your viewport might be a bit different. I'm just going to go over the quick viewport controls just in case somebody here is new and not familiar with it. Inside Blender, we have our basic, well, not our basic, we have our areas, which is what we call the working parts of Blender. Our main one is the 3D area, 3D viewport. We have our outliner, that's out here. You can see this is where our things are. There's a little hidden collection here that is just some helpers. It's actually also the controlling shapes, stuff like that. And those are the ones, yeah, they need to be there, but that's why it's hidden and unloaded, so it shouldn't be visible. Down here we have our outliner and outliner panel. Let me just boop and, oh, wrong one, overlay. Here you go, this one. We won't be using this one too much today, but we will probably get back to it at some point. There you go. And here at the bottom, it's kind of hidden away, but this is actually also an area. This is our timeline. This is where we'll be having most of our fun today. So yeah, when working in Blender, when working with animation, it doesn't really matter if you're doing it in Blender or if you're doing it in any other software. You tend to work with a lot of different aspects. Some of you have probably heard the 12 principles of animation that haven't changed over the last 100 years, because those are the 12 that work. I've seen some people try to expand it to 16, and I find that it just becomes a little bit bloated. Like, it doesn't need 16. It just needs the 12, and then that's great. That's fine. And today we will be working with some of them, just basic ones. The first one we'll be working with is actually called timing. So the timing and the space between things. I got distracted there in the middle of it. Yeah, so to navigate around in 3D space, we can hold down middle mouse button, and this will orbit in 3D space. If you hold down shift and middle mouse button, you can pan. And if you hold down control and middle mouse button, you can zoom in and out. Great fun. Alright, so to animate, what you will see here, you don't have to follow along with this step, but I'm just going to show you. What we have to do a lot of the time is we have to create something called a rig. That is these two bones in here that will be driving and deforming the mesh we have, or can, for us to be able to work with today. Now, let's go there, back here. Then, just to clarify, these controllers have simply, like, the bones work exactly as the bones would without the controllers. The controllers are there to make it easier to work with. That's why they're there. Yeah. So, to animate, we want to grab our controller, just left click, drag a selection box over it, and then up here in the top, we want to open this up, and we want to go to something called pose mode. This is your actual animation mode. We can no longer select our geometry, just will not let us. It's so sad, but we don't need to, because we have our controllers. And our controllers move the whole thing. I can even grab the top one, and if I rotate on that, you can see my can starts deforming. Now, the deforming part here is the actual, like, the part with the animation comes into it. And it's kind of, like, we will work with it as much as possible and not against it. For the middle one, we will be sticking with rotation most of the time. You can do a little bit of scaling on it if you want to. It's a bit silly, but you know, you can. Also, if you want to do squash and stretch, do note that it only really has control over the top. So, but first of all, we're actually going to start with our bottom one, because we are going to do a jump today. It's a very simple thing, but it's also one of the most basic things that will reoccur always while animating. The classic example that's kind of boring, well, not boring, but kind of used a lot, is a bouncing ball. And the reason for that is most things will follow that bouncing ball one way or another. The great example I was given is the human hip when we walk sort of mimics a bouncing ball. Like when you bounce a ball, it'll go boing, boing, boing. You have to stay inside here. Boing, 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 boing. And that's the same movement that your hip makes when you walk. So you have to keep that in mind. And also your head will follow it because it's attached to your spine and it's attached to your hip, and it's a whole thing. So to start us off, we will be animating on our main controller, and we'll be trying to get as much of our timing down as possible. Now, the way we're going to do this is we're going to select it, and we're going to press I on our keyboard. And here you get insert keyframe menu. This is a quick drop down. It's trying to make it easier for you to keyframe the specific things you're looking for. So in this case, because the bottom controller is just supposed to really control the movement, it's not supposed to do a lot of other things. We can rotate a little bit on it just for fun later, but for now, actually, you know what? If we want to do that fun, let's make sure we're ready for it. So for now, we're going to go down until we see location and rotation. We're going to click it, because this will now put a key here. Next thing we're going to do, because right now, as we can see, down here on our time slider, we have a key. This is our movement. This is the current position that has been record it on the time slider, and every time we then move the time slider, hell, I can even move this can. I move the time slider and it moves back, because right now that's the only position it has recorded at all. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go, let's see, about 10 frames. We can change the time later, but we're going to go about 10 frames forward. We're going to press G for movement and X for the x-axis. I'm just going to move it a little bit back, so it has a little bit of a run up, right? Yeah, let's do that. And I'm going to put another key. And now you can see it moves back. And then now we got to plan out our animation, because that's the whole part. You can't, a lot of the time, you can't just animate by going, oh, I feel like animating something today. I'm just going to start putting down keys. It's not going to make a lot of sense. You got to plan it out. So what I'm going to do, and also so that you understand what it is I'm doing, is I'm going to have it take a few steps back, and then I'm going to have it move, well, not steps, but like have it go a little bit, shimmy a little bit back, so that it can move forward and then leap into the air. I don't have a lot of room to show it, but leap into the air so that it gets more momentum and more, it has more build up and it has more release. Now there's a hidden rule of thumb with animation, and that is a lot of the storytelling, a lot of the appeal, and a lot of what we want to see is actually not in the action itself, but it's in the warm-up and the follow-through of that action. So this we can see as our warm-up. We might want to change this, the timing might be too slow, might be too fast, but let's make the whole thing and then decide whether or not it's too fast or too slow. So I'm going to move mine to frame, well, let's do frame 20. I think that's going to be too slow, but let's just make sure. And I'm going to move it forward. So I'm going to move it forward past its starting position. Then I'm going to press I again, location, transform. Then we can actually click and see what that looks like. It's very fast, but I don't much mind. I think it's a bit too fast. I like this part, like the forward motion part, but the back motion's a bit too fast. So what we can do is down here on our time slider, I can drag a selection box, select those two keys, and I can move them forward so that they get a bit more space. Now the reason why I'm moving both of them is I do like this the spacing between going backwards and then running forwards to start the leap. So let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks better. We're actually getting a bit of not personality, but we're getting a bit of movement in there. So next thing I want to do is I want to get this guy to jump really far. Now we're going to give it a bit extra time in the air just so that we have some time or we have some space to animate. A real jump would be quicker, but having hang time and stuff like that's super awesome, and it's what all the kids like these days. So I'm going to go to about frame 50, so that's a second ahead. Oh, and press G and X again, and move it fairly far forward. So this is the length of the jump I'm getting here, right? Keyframe, location, and rotation. And let's see what that looks like. I think that looks all right. I don't hate it. It's not great yet, but it will get there. So that means we now have our warm-up. Our character, our can, is walking backwards, getting ready to jump. We have a explosion of energy, and then at frame 25 here, this is then, the reason why I have the key there is because what we're going to do next is the sort of more interesting thing, is when it's supposed to jump off the ground. And then at frame 50 is our landing. Now, when you do a jump like this, you have this curve, so you have a lot of momentum going forward and air starts dragging on you, and then you're going to go fairly quickly downwards. So if we were just doing a straight up jump, we would take the middle of our 2 frames and we would put that as like the up point. Oh, Jesus. As the up point, we'd do like this. But we're actually going to move it a little bit forward to about frame 40. And then I'm going to press G and Z to go up and do location and rotation. Now, let's see the animation. By the way, in case you're wondering why I am clicking all these buttons here, so this is go to start, so that's the start of our animation, or jump to endpoint. That is because if you just pull this slider, you're not actually getting the timing, you're just getting what's happening, right? And what we really want to do is we want to know, does this look all right? So let's look. It's a bit slow, it's a bit funky, but I don't think it doesn't work completely yet. So we can then start. Oh Jesus, I have somebody else's preferences. It's great. We now look at this and we can go, well, what part of this do I like? Is there anything else I need to change? It's a bit floaty, but that's not now. This is timing. Oui? Okay. I'm not loving the, like, getting the late zenith of the jump on mine. And this is also a point, like if something's not looking right, don't be afraid to change things like as soon as possible, because that's the only way you're going to get a good thing, is by, if your eye and your brain is telling you something looks bad, change it. Make sure it starts looking the way you want it to. As soon as you start saying, oh, it's not what I wanted it to be, then you're going to have issues. Let's check that. That's too fast. Okay, let's try something else. Let's try moving this back. And then let's go for the middle. So we got frame 25 to frame 50, so that should be right around frame 40. G, Z. Oh. And location and rotation. And let's see what that looks like. Very floaty. Yeah, I think it needs a bit faster upwards momentum. So let's go here, try that. Location and rotation. Yeah, that looks better. So it's still very floaty and things like that, but we're going to change that. That's later. Right now we're just working on the timing. Does everything sort of look right? And another thing we can sort of do here is we can actually have him go, oh, there you go. We can actually have him go a little bit more forward. Actually, let's go even more forward than that. Because then he has like a little slide when he lands. Yeah. See, that's starting to look all right. So this is now our main movement. This is what we want to affect from now on. We want to make this look like a character is doing it or a person is doing it. And that's sort of what we're going to try and start to mess around with. Because now we're going to start with going to our upper controller. Now, before I said we only want to key this one on its rotation, and yeah, I think we're going to stick with that. So let us, at frame 1, at the beginning, put in a key on the rotation. So I to inset key and rotation. This is so we have a static endpoint, right? That our endpoint's 1. It's always going to return to this. This is our neutral pose. So now we're going backwards. We know we go backwards until frame 10. Oh, we go backwards until frame 15, and then we move forward. So at frame 15, we kind of want our characters to start like scrunching up a little bit, just to in preparation of the just to get the preparation of the jump, right? We'll try that, and you'll see here it's moving backwards and going forward, and then here becomes sort of a, we know at frame 25 this is the release, this is the jump. So at this point we actually need to start having him decompress. But let's see here, frame 25. Let's just try and have him go halfway up again. And so normally, if you've been following along with the other classes, I've been saying like, oh, lock your rotation, lock all these things to axes. With a thing like this, it's actually okay to like free rotate a little bit, because some asymmetrical movement just seems more alive, more human. Like our movements are not symmetrical a lot of the time, both because of biological factors. Like most people are not 100% symmetrical. My left arm is longer than my right arm. My left foot is bigger than my right foot. My right hand is bigger than my left hand. Things like that. And most human beings will have something like that, and that will actually affect the way they move a lot more than you expect. So it's all right to have a little bit of extra variation, as long as you know the movement you really want is there. So let's take a look at what that looks like. That looks all right. And then when we reach the top, so frame 35, that should actually be frame 35. Here, instead of like before we squash together to get like a more feeling, here we want him actually to like stretch out further backwards. So he's like trying to get as tall as possible. He's trying to become a tall boy. And let's put a key there. And then let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks fine. Then we know we land at frame 50. And I like to do a crunch here. So a crunch is you land, you impact. That's going to be heavy. It's going to hurt, right? So, and this is very simple right now. This is just the same movement as we did in the start, because it is technically the same movement. It's your knees that are bending, or in this case, it's his midriff, right? So I'll key rotation, and let's take a look at our beautiful can. Yeah, so that was too fast. I don't like him because he's supposed to crunch up at the moment he hits the ground. So I actually don't particularly like him crunching up before. So you see here, between my zenith, my stretching out, and my landing, he's already starting to brace for impact. Now that bracing, it's not wrong to do a little bit of bracing, but it's too slow and it's not happening when I want it to happen. So I'm going to take an arbitrary point here. I'm just going to rotate this a little bit back again. Do some rotation, because then this should be a fairly slow or fairly quick movement. Still a bit too slow for my liking. So let's see if we can crunch that down. And what I'm doing is I'm simply moving my keys 1 or 2 frames, because you never know if it's a 1 or 2 frames thing or if it's the whole concept that doesn't work. Because every now and again you'll have an animation that doesn't look correct. This was something the headmaster here of CADA actually taught me. Like, most of the time when you feel like an animation isn't working, you just need to move the frame like it can be as little as 1 frame, but it can also be like 2 or 3, even 5 frames. So don't get precious with moving your keys. Just move them. Move them all you can. All right. And then let's just stick with easy numbers. Frame 65, I'm gonna have him rotate back up, go a little bit over as like, ooh, yeah, that hurt, that smirk. Rotation, go down. Let's see that. That's too quick recovery, so let's do a slower recovery. See what that looks like. That's too slow. So you see, I figured out the recovery is too slow. It's too fast to begin with. It's too slow now. So I'm just adjusting the timing of it. I'm trying to remove a few frames. If I feel like I'm going back to it being too fast, I'll fix it. If I feel like I'm going back to it being too slow, I'll try to go halfway back up. I'm using it's an old like design method. Something's it's not quite good enough, but almost there. All right. And then, you know what, to pad out the last few frames, let's have him look back. So, gonna bring him back up. I for rotation. And let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's getting there. And then we want him to have like a conscious looking, like can we get him to look like he's looking backwards? I think we can. Rotation. And see what we can see with that. Yeah, because you see that last part? That it's very quick. The timing's sort of already there. I can just hold this up. This is what it looks like right now. If you want to mix my keys, match my keys, these are the numbers. Got one on frame 1, 15, 25, 35, 49, 55. What is that? That is 80, 68, and 75, and then 80. So that looks all right. The cool thing is now we know the length of our animation. Like everything that's going to happen in our animation is going to happen in 90 frames. So there's no reason for us to have a gigantic time slider anymore. Might as well just, because you can see here, if I play my animation, it's going to start doing this, and then it's just going to stand still there for 10 seconds, right? We don't want that. We're going to try to see if we can make it a bit easier for ourselves to have it loop at a lower rate. So, on our time slider, let me just remove my overlay and myself. On my time slider over here, do that. I think that's a good idea. Just, yeah, you're going to animate it slashing around. I'd still, if you haven't animated before the Gamer HD Extreme, I would honestly try to start with a bouncing ball. So, but yeah, so we can get back to you guys seeing me again. When you have the time slider here, this, you can see here it says start and end. Well, we know our end point is frame 90, so we can do frame 95 if we want to hold it a bit more, just have a little bit of free space. And now we can, whenever we press play, it's gonna loop what we already have already, right? It's gonna do it very quickly so we can look at everything together. Oh, if you did a bit of 2D animation, then, you know, the principles should still be there. I'd still give the bouncing ball just one go, or, you know, bouncing can, and give it a go. Just get the most of it there, and that should be great. All right. So, let's see how much. Oh, overlay camera. There you go. I'm back. Yeah. It's not completely perfect. Like I said, I'm not a professional animator. I just know how to do it. But it's a good thing. Like, I generally have, this is going to sound a little bit arrogant, and that's It's not meant like that. I generally have people to animate for me. So, yeah. All right. So remember in the beginning, I said, let's add a little bit of. Let's add a little bit of. We probably want to add a little bit of rotation to the main controller, and I think now's the time, because I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna like have the bottom act as feet, so we're gonna have it go wah 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 wah. Those are the technical terms. So I'm gonna rotate this on my x-axis there, and I'm gonna rotate it on my z-axis. And then what I'm actually gonna do is I'm just gonna put a key on rotation, because it should then get, yeah, perfect. Because it should then, you know, because we already put down keys for rotation before, it should then move from its 0 and then lift up one side, start to slide down, and then we'll do frame 8, which will then have the other side rotating. So R, X, R, Z, and do it backwards a little bit. I rotation. You can see now he's getting that he's getting a little bit of shimmy in there now before moving on. Yeah. It's not uncommon for animators to make weird noises while they're working. Yeah. You see, that little shimmy actually works really, really well. And it's so fast. It's 8 frames. It's like a second is 25 frames in European cinematic things. And then, so those 8 frames just really work because it's just giving that little bit of shimmy, a little bit of movement that we really want. Now, what would be cool is if we could also have it, but quicker, on the way up here. So, because we already did the work, Control C, Control, come on, Control C, Control V. There you go. So now he should be shimmying all the time. Yeah. Constant shimmies. And it's not full on running, it's just giving like the hint that something's happening here, right? And that's really gonna drive a lot of personality. You can make him do longer shimmies, slower shimmies, quicker shimmies, and that's gonna actually, weirdly enough, communicate a lot about what type of character we're looking at. Even the color of this can is already evoking a little bit of character that we, as animators, you need to invoke just with movement. As texture artists, you need to invoke it just with textures. As modelers, you need to invoke it just with the silhouette, just with the look of the model, without anything else. If you can do that, you're succeeding at your job. All right. So, I think we are ready at this point to start working with our curves. So we've placed a bunch of keys, and I've been talking about we're working with our timing. And that's the space between actions, the space between things happening, stuff like that. And now we want to go in and we want to start working with our curves. And our curves are going to give us, what's it called? It's called follow through and feel of animation terms. Wow. It's going to give us that bit more of realism. It's going to allow us to play, because right now all of this is set to an auto-weighted thing, and you can see the visualization of it very soon. We're going to be able to manipulate these so that they look better soon. Well, now. And the way we do that is down here in our time slider, because we don't really need our time slider right now. We did all the timing stuff. We're going to open this up. You can see one called the graph editor. This is also where you call it curves. It comes from Maya. Everybody else just pretty much stole it. It's called the curve editor, graph editor. Yeah, I think in Unreal Engine it's just called edit curves. It's not called editor, it's just called edit curves. It's great fun. And in here, let's make that window a bit bigger. You can see your movement represented as lines, which is great. But there's oh so many lines, and they can be kind of hard to figure out if you're not familiar with what they are. So the green one is, of course, our y-axis. This one, right? Nope, it's no longer a y. Oh, sorry. Of course we need to show it. Nope, it's our z-axis. So it's important to note that world space and local space aren't necessarily the same, and your curve editor might be lying to you. But we can make it a little bit easier for ourselves. So you can see over here I have a bone selected, so I can open that up, and we now know that this is our Y location, so that's this one, and we need that. And what is this? This is our X locations, X on that one. So that means we have a Z location here that we're not using for anything. It has keys on, but we're not actually using it. So we can turn it off. We can like press the little eyeball here and that will hide it. We have, that's the Y. Let's see this one. This is quaternion X rotation. Don't need that one because we're not using it. Oh, we have a little bit of there, so let's not delete the Y. And the Z does absolutely nothing, so we'll hide that. Because this makes it a little easier for us to look at. Now, in the beginning, it's complete information overload. But, trust me, it gets easier. Oh, quaternion W. Yeah, remove quaternion W. You don't need that. So, in reality, we are only working with 3 curves. Our Y rotation, that's our shimmy. I think there was a little bit of shimmy on the Z rotation as well, but it's so small we don't need to think about it. We're working with our Y, our local Y location, which is our jump movement mostly, and our X location, which is our backwards, forwards movements. So these are the ones we got to look for and work with. Now in the beginning, I like to work with our jump here, because in reality, this guy is accelerating way too slowly in the beginning. When you jump, you have a heckin' lot of energy right at the beginning, and that's what you want to show. So you want that jump to be explosive. So we have our Y location. Just going to turn off the other 2 so I can see. There you go. You can see it has these 2 extra dots next to it. These are called beshears, or handles in Blender. And when I pull them, my curve changes. So you can imagine every point on the curve as a little key that is then, but what Blender is doing for you, and as all 3D softwares will do for you, they will interpolate the movement between 2 keys and make your life easier, so you don't have to hand place every single key. Now, by default, these are set to be aligned, which means when I move one, the other one will move as well. This is deeply frustrating because that's not what we want. So I'm going to select the first key here. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to say handle type and set it to free. So now what I can do is I can move one freely of the other one. So you see I have no reaction at the backside. And now this is going to give me an explosive jump. Ooh, that's a bit too much for my taste. Let's see it again. See, there we're getting somewhere. So we're going to get a quick explosive reaction going upwards, which is what we want. And then I like this. I get a lot of shit for liking this, but I like this. I like to give my characters a little bit of hang time. So, you know, when they're in the top of the air and they can, you know, enjoy the feeling of flying before they can enjoy the feeling of falling. That's a bit too much hang time on the end, but as we can see again, this is aligned. We don't want it to be aligned. We want it to be free. So I can make the acceleration downward just not faster, but I definitely want it there. Actually, you know what? Let's do like this. And then like this. Oh, the last little bit we don't want. You see here? It gets a little oof, little bump up. And zoom in and show you guys better, I think. We gets a itty bitty bump up. And that's a little bit jarring. You want to avoid bumps like that because it looks like glitches more than anything else. So let's see what that looks like. That's about good because I still have my hang time, and then you know he starts to fall, and maybe that's a bit much hang time, but I like it. Oh, bottom there. Yeah, I'm not too scuffed about that. I think it's all right. We can of course go in and we can make it even stronger by again setting the handle type to free and moving it up like this. It's gonna give us a heavier thump when he lands. Yeah, that actually does work. I'm not sounding surprised. I'm more sounding like, do I like it? Do I not like it? Am I being too critical of myself? But I think this works fairly well. So, all right, and with that done, that's actually our jump. That's well, it's the upward movement momentum of our jump finished. So that means I can now hide this one because I'm happy with what it looks like. I don't want to change anything more about it. I want it to be as it is. Now, with our forward, so our x-axis are the distance traveled with our jumping here, we need to do a little bit of cleanup. Because you can see here, there's a lot of keys that we're just not going to use ever, specifically these two. Don't care about those. Don't want them there. So, I can select them. I can press delete. And you can see, I still have my animation because all this is interpolated together, right? This should be my jump. It is. Oh. That's moving forward and then jump attack. There you go. Now, here comes a funny thing. So as soon as you start momentuming that way, what will actually look better is if we set the interpretation to linear, because he's free flowing. I know there's a bunch of things about inertia, what's it called, the arrow of decay, stuff like that, fourth law of thermodynamics, but we're not necessarily working with that. We're working with animation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go under interpolation. And right now what we have is set our under interpolation is set to Bashir. We want to set it to linear. Oop. And that's not this one down here we want to do it on, it's this one up here. Because we want it to be our out. So let's just make sure that, yeah, as you can see here, it's still weighted at the back of this. This still has like a little thing. But all of the jump happens at a steady pace forward. It's a bit long, but again, that's so we had time to work with it in the middle, and we also need time to do the stretching out and stuff like that and work with the timing on that. So, and I I think this one actually works fairly decently as it is. I maybe would like it to stop a bit more abrupt. So I can take my Bashir here and I can drag that down and see what that looks like. Oh, he goes a little bit back, don't want that. But I can just pull it further and you can see the weight of this key will now go further into the time slider, which means it has bigger effect this way. That's too much. See, that looks better. So now it has a lot more effect. It's instead of going 50-50 split, it's likely more of a 75 here and then a 25 split here. So this one carries a lot more weight in the interpolation. This is just a very nice visual way of showing, instead of having to work with a bunch of numbers, then showing what it is, having the curves there, allows us to work with them in a very pleasant manner. All right. I think that is perfect for our movement, our X location. So let's see here. Here we have a shimmy. A shimmy here. I'm honestly going to be real with you. These happen so quickly that working with the timing at this stage is a little bit, you don't need to do it really. And oh, we're also running out of time. So instead, let us move on to the upper bone. So just click on it and you'll see, come on. Come on. There you go, got it. You can now see, again, whole host of rotations. Now, because I was being a little bit more blasé with my rotations, I was just rotating willy-nilly without locking to axes and stuff like that. Most of our rotations now actually do have value on them one way or another. Let's see here. Our main one, it will actually be our Z axis. So, just to visualize what that does for us, if I set this one here, if I rotate this, you can see I'm now crunching him together even more than I was before. Now, these we do want to play with because these start to become quite important. So let's start with our Z. And let's just start from the beginning. So we have our crunch up here. And the thing I want here is I want the crunch to be a very slow, deliberate movement because you have a lot more control over these slow preparation movements, so you can make them a lot slower. Right? So, I'm going to right click, set handle type to free, so I can move them independently of each other. And I'm just going to pull this one backwards because this means he'll start crunching up a lot sooner than he would otherwise. And it gives this bit more of a quick thing than if, let's see if I can undo it. There you go. Then this. The other one gets very slow. It becomes more like it's a big, strong person, not a fast and light one. So it really depends on what you're going for. Do you want the strong person to move very slowly? Then you can of course have them do that, or if you want them to move very quickly, you can do that by either, if you want them to move quickly, as you saw, have this influence it a lot, and if you want it to be a strong person, have it influence a little. It's not a lot, because again, this is 15 frames, it's not even a second, but there's enough there that you can actually, start telling a story, start explaining what a character is by simply using their movements, which is really rather nice. It's one of the things that I'm always in awe of when it comes to animators. So, and let's see here. Ooh, that's too fast. Oh, I like that. It's given like a little extra burst of speed. So what I've done is I've actually moved the curve so you have like this seagull wing, this M, but just tiny bit, just slightly. This is giving us a little bit holding down, actually like hunkering down a little extra, leaning into one of the shimmies, and that's quite nice. All right, set handle type to free, and then let's have that shimmy hold a lot longer, because here what we're now seeing is that release happens almost instantaneously when we move this. If I move this very far this way, it's going to be a very slow release, and it's going to look. Oh, I feel like I had a good example. It's not gonna be great. It's gonna look like it's underwater. But this way, it becomes a very fast release. I think somewhere in between those two things, more leaning to the quick than the slow one, but I still want this movement to be fairly extreme. Like, this needs to be a very, very quick action, and it goes back to the action itself is actually less interesting than the warm up and the follow through. So when you do a jump, you don't need to do a fast jump. You can do a fairly slow jump. Oh, no, you don't need to do a slow jump. You don't need to do a super highly detailed jump. The jump in and of itself can be very, very, very fast. Everything else should be a bit slower, just because that's the interesting parts of your animation. Yeah, let's move this down a little bit. And then let's move that one. Oh, forgot to set handle type to free. Let's just do like this. So it actually takes him a bit longer to get to the fully stretched out position. Oh, that's too much of a jar. It's too jagged of an animation. Go. And then let's have him hold that for very little time. There we go, there we go. And then here we get back to the crunch, as in this is when he hits the ground. And because this is a loss of momentum, loss of energy, because of an impact, then like that happens very quickly. You could see that. Well, I actually don't think you can. I don't think the frame rate's high enough. But like, if we imagine this is a wall, I'm running head first at it. Like, the wall's not gonna move. I'd wish it did, but it's not. So when you have somebody jump and you have them land, that landing is harsh because it's just all of the energy from the jump being transferred into your legs, and the ground is not yielding. If the ground was smaller and it would yield, you would feel that the energy is not transferred to your legs, it's transferred into the ground. So we want this. It's too slow. There we go. Oh, you're still weighted. That's annoying. Oh. There you go. Now that looks better. And then what do we have here? This is his bending backwards, like the little, oof, that was hard. Better start like aligning myself again. And then we have the rotation backwards. I don't think I want to change that too much. I feel like that works the way it should. That is this one. We can actually, what we could do is we could overdrive it a little bit and add a little bit of extra movement to it. So I think I have nothing on this rotation that is intentionally there. Just add a little bit of randomness, a little bit of good to it. So I'm gonna go here to my final key. I'm gonna set the handle types to free. What's that? Oh, that is the Bashir. And oh, of course, it's not actually gonna allow me to do that because I don't have a key. So I'm just gonna duplicate that frame pretty much. So I and rotation. Here we go. You can see it gets that handle type. And then I'm just gonna, I can overdrive this, which means I can actually go past the key that I made. You can see what that looks like. Oh, that's not fast enough, or that's too fast. So let's just move this way. Let's see what we can do to find. No, that doesn't look right. So I don't want a lot of overdrive, I just want a little bit of extra movement, a little like jerk. Still a bit jarring. Maybe I don't want it. Maybe it was an idea that didn't work out, so I scrap it. Alright, let's see here. We have our x-axis. What happens when I start to edit this one? He goes further downwards. Do we want him further down? No, we don't. We kind of like this. So that works really well. Well, let us see. Yeah, so that does actually work really, really well. So there's something about the speed of his jump that isn't quite what I need it to be and want it to be. So let's work a bit more on that and see if we can get it. Maybe it's too high. So we can try and move it down a little bit and see if that looks better. Not that far down, definitely, but see, that's probably better. So the problem was the jump was too high, I think, and I don't think we were off by much. I think we were up here before, so let's see if we can get it to a better point here. A little bit extra. Yeah, getting there again. Let's see what happens when we do this. As long as I'm not getting the jerkiness of it. No, I am. Don't want that. Alright, what happens if we do this? Nope. You can sort of imagine this. This is what I do. Is if you have a jump, then the curve here should have the shape of that jump, of what it is you want that jump to look like, because that will most likely be what you see. All right, a little bit down. Oh. Where'd my key go? Out there. A little bit up again. Yeah, there you go. That's fairly smooth. That's probably what we want. That's good. Don't care about the Z location. Let's check the X location again. Oh, that actually did great stuff for it. So what I did there was, before this was fairly nondescript, this X curve here. What I did was I just pulled this back so that when it starts to accelerate forward, it actually happens extremely fast. And that's actually doing very nice things for it. And let's see down here. Is there anything interesting we can do? Oh. No, don't like that. But yeah. Holy hot damn. So, are there any more questions here for this one? Because I would love to help you if you do have questions for it. If not, we do have Discord submissions for the dragon. Because like I didn't have Discord access last week, and my assistant was sick, but I have gotten Discord access today, so we can look over the dragons and see what they look like. And also, if any of you have pictures of your sword, all right. If you have pictures of your swords or your whatever you did make, then please do post them in Discord. We'll look over it. I'll give a little bit of feedback. I know that's one of those buzzwords that the welcome Harrisip to the chat. Glad you're here. Let's see, there. That's just the stream. That's that one. Discord. All right. So Bootcamp, that's us. And let's see some dragons. So 29th of 11th. That's where we started off. So this one is the first one we're going to. Got a nice head shape on it, nice and flat, which is very nice for lizards because they do have that, and it's a good, starting point for a lot of things. The bumpiness as scales, I think you went a little too heavy either using the standard brush or using the smooth. A fun thing, if you did use the standard brush, what you could probably actually do is you could do like circles around these scales, or like at where you want the hard edge of the scales to meet the skin. And then smooth the inside of it so that the outside, like the outside of the circle you just drew, is still kind of hard edged. It has a harder angle where it meets the rest of the sculpt, but the inside of those scales will still look fairly planar and uniform, and that just adds a lot of detail. I like your choice of eyes. That's also the one I usually go with. If these are supposed to be horns, I would give them horn definition. But again, if you want to work with more or not. If it's supposed to be like skin doo-wops, then I think they're great. I think they're wonderful because those are fun. Again, more definition on the horns. If these are horns, more definition on them. And try to get a little bit of work down the neck. Because it just, even if you're just doing a bust, just doing the head, it actually adds a lot if you have the neck to actually put some detail onto there, some imaginary muscle. You don't have to put a lot in there. It's sort of it's an imaginary creature. Nobody knows what its actual anatomy looks like. So like butterfly, I see you went a little bit wild with the inflate brush on the nose. I would probably go over the frills with the smooth brush. Like, these artifacts, or these like geometry artifacts, are not necessarily a bad thing. You can actually use them to get some very nice shapes and details if you start practicing how to abuse that. There's a great artist, Ashley A. Adams, who uses a lot of these like fractal artifacts you get from having low poly meshes that you then pull out and stretch into gigantic shapes like these frills. I think I've even seen her do it with wings, and then she uses those to actually, like the artifact, she'll use those to gain more detail, and it's just brilliant to watch. So I would definitely look into that if you want to like continue trying to work with fractals or like artifacts. It's a great workflow. It's a bit hard to get your head around it the first few times you do it, but once you do, it's a tool. It's a wonderful tool you have. Oh, the scales on this one's great. Like, you have a nice level of detail. Like, the scales have extra wrinkles and shapes in them, which is giving, a texture different, a surface variation, which brings them even further. There's a little bit like It's like a Cubone from Pokemon without the helmet on. That's what I imagine it looked like underneath it. Yeah, I like that. Could also be like a Charmander or a Charizard or Charmeleon probably, since it only has one nubbin in the back. Well, that's looking really good. Got a rather fiendish devil. Oh, and you made a little bit of custom eyes on that. That's good. And you used a snake hook to create teeth instead of cheating your way like I did. Oh, love those. This gives like a very, very nice symmetrical, like it does really tell that this is not necessarily what's it called? Not necessarily an evolved creature, because you would never have horns on your jaw. That's just impractical. But it works. It works very well for the silhouette. It's working hard for the design, and it's great. Flat, nice. You got some good detail, even though these are like, I can see these are the clay build-up brushes. That's not bad. It can be a great way of having like that more sketchy detail. You seem a bit flat at this surface, so, and that might just be the angle. To be fair, you could probably have a, yeah, these are some amazing dragons. They're great. It could probably actually have a lot more shape than I'm seeing, but then it's just the angle not showing me what it is, what it is you've done. So I'd think I'd either narrow in the snout so it doesn't become that so blocky, and say it out, but your nostrils and your ears look great. I like the semi-ear like of the horns. That's really nice. Your brows have a nice definition on them. Even this little lumpy part here, I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it does actually work very well. It gives it like, it looks angry, because that's, you can see when I furrow my brow and get angry, I get these two, I get this wrinkle between my eyebrows. And well, when your eyes are on the side of your head, it's kind of hard to do. So if you have like a little extra indentation, you get a bit more anger or wizened look. Oh, and somebody went all buck wild with the projection brushes. Got a little bit of cleanup there, but apart from that, nice traditional dragon nostrils, puffy eyes that I like, good horns, and frills. It looks like your jaw goes into the frills, which I imagine would be impractical, but again, not too bad. Lips look really good. I'm getting... this sounds like a diss, but it really isn't. There's an old movie called Dragonheart that was I remember the dragon in that movie being absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So it sort of has that vibe because it has very human lips, which is a great way of making a dragon more likable. Like, if you want a dragon to be scary, you show its teeth, you remove lips from it. It's one of the things they did with T-Rexes in Jurassic Park, because T-Rexes had lips that covered their teeth, so you wouldn't see them. But in Jurassic Park, they lifted that lip up so that the teeth would always be visible and make it more scary. Because most things see teeth as a threat display. It's weirdly only humans that do smiles as I don't think it's only humans, but mostly humans that do smiles with teeth. It's a nice little person. You definitely got a face in there, which is impressive thinking about ZBrush Core Mini, so that's great. Great free mouse. Somebody's doing a lighting thing. That looks great. Oh, you have a barrel. Oh, these are old. Why is this not chronological? There you go. Ooh, I like that. That is very, very nice. So you got a parasolophagus in there, which is very nice, like the mouth part going a bit further out. I love the three eyes, and the whole crest thing gives it a very buggy vibe, and that's really really cool. It's nice to see dragon designs that aren't regular dragon. I like the standard dragon. Don't like, and even me saying standard, don't take that as a standard, but seeing something new and interesting out there is actually really nice. And you got a bit of nice, like this looks like skin instead of chitin, which is very good. Nostrils front facing, got very big lips. But the fun thing here is so I said lips before humanizes a dragon a lot, but because your lips are so thin yet still so bulging, they become like suction cups, or like something that will trap something they eat, which is just brilliant. Love that. Yeah, that works out very very well. I think all the rest of them are old things. I don't quite understand why these are not chronological, but that's not my part. So this is, yeah, let's give you a like. So all right. Let's look at our bouncing can a bit more then. There's always more work to be done on dragons. I'm wondering, I think it might be better from the other side. Yeah, he's looking back that way, like that. That works a lot better. Yeah, well, I'm still here contractually obligated. Not really, but for another 20 minutes. If you guys have questions, I can also answer questions about the school. Christian's also ready to refer you to. It did went quite alright for your first time. But yeah, if you have any questions, please do come with them. Also, if you have any questions about 3D, about the industries, things like that, you can also ask unrelated questions, but I don't know how qualified I am to answer them. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead and ask us anything. But again, not qualified to answer absolutely everything. I'm not a biologist. I'm also not a physicist or priest or neurosurgeon. There's a lot of things I'm not. I'm fairly decent at 3D, so you know, I got that going for me. It's gonna be great under the apocalypse and everybody's going, what's your profession? Well, I'm a carpenter. Great, we can use that. Well, what's your profession? I'm an engineer. Well, we can use that to build things. What's your profession? I'm a 3D artist. Probably can't use that. I can imagine things very well. The Gamer XD Extreme, you would be right. It is great for a first time sculpt. Like my first time sculpt was dog shit. Like I'm not pretending that I wasn't great from the get go. I wasn't. It took me a lot of time to get good at it. I forced myself to sort of get good at it because I wanted to. I wanted to get really good at doing dinosaurs. But I also wanted to get really good at doing muscle simulations and things like that. So what I did was when we had ZBrush, I got into ZBrush. We had a great artistic teacher, not a very great technical teacher, which means like it was the same teacher, but he's very very artistic, which means I got very good at doing all the artistical parts. I was then struggling a bit when I reached technical limitations where you needed tools to fix a few things. But it means I can do most things with just 4 brushes. Do you have any cool projects that you are working at the moment, whether passion projects or something? Yeah, so I'm actually doing I'm doing a project together with Adam Mays, the education head of education here at CADA Trumax, where we are doing. It's going to be like some models for 3D printing and Dungeons and Dragons, and I think so far my plan is to do 170 models by February. Get them out, get them printing, test printing, get supports on them, and then there's going to be a bigger project with that I we are there's also going to be some story stuff, some team things, because like 3D can be used to do 3D printing as well, which is great fun. I also do just small things here and there. I do Unreal projects more often than not. I think I have a graveyard of about 17 that are just, oh, started this. I have a fun idea. Let's do. Suddenly it's 4 o'clock at night, and I'm halfway to where I want to be, and I go to bed, and then I forget to pick it back up. But that means I have a lot of practice with a lot of the things inside Unreal, because most of them don't have any overlap. So, yeah. Well, so I was thinking, and this is one of my favorite topics, especially when we sculpt dragons. Is like there's a lot of what's it called? There's a lot of elitism when it comes to dragons, and apparently that started with Tolkien. And if people want to go super purist with dragons and go back to his example, there's only 2 dragons that are dragons, and it's Fafnir and it's Nidhogg. So, like, if anybody ever tells you that something you make is not a dragon, or it's a wyvern, or it's something else, then don't listen to them. You made a dragon. It's always a dragon. The Gamer HD Extreme, for me, it's quite the opposite. I like the art stuff, especially 3D, but I didn't have time or equipment until now. I was mainly focused on programming. But now I said I will give it a try to see how this is going to go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely do it. The practice, just bang your head against that wall as many times as you need to start feeling like you're succeeding. I teach a 3D class at the Technical University of Riga. I think it's Augustskola Riseba, something, where I tell my students, because that's a lot less hands-on teaching than you have at CADA. Like, I have them once a week for 9 weeks. That's it. That's all the 3D they get in their entire education. But I tell them, if they want to get good at this, the best way of doing that, outside of taking an education in it, is falling in love with 3D. Getting to really feel like this stuff is fun, because that will carry you so much further than any YouTube tutorial will, or any practice makes perfect, but a passion for something will get you a lot further than a lot of quick and or quick get good guides and here buy my course, stuff like that. But the thing is, then, if you want to do professional, like if you're doing a hobby, go passion. If you want to do professional, there are industry standards that we got to work with, and that you got to work with, and those are not readily available. They are, but it's in like deep forums and things like that. But if you need to learn industry standards, good place of learning that is through people from the industry, or people who've tried the industry. Also kind of educations, because CADA bases their education on what the industry needs. We actually try to anticipate them a lot, to see if you can get that, if you can get ahead of the curve. First of all, because if we are ahead of the curve, we know what we're doing. But also, if you can get ahead of the curve and then bring out students as new technologies or as new words, as new production methods develop, your students will come out and they'll be better than the people in the industry. We had a funny thing happen. I was talking to an old teacher here from CADA, who was my teacher when I worked here, Professor Lars Kroh, who is like old industry veteran, and he was talking to a guy from what is it called, the animation school in Baden-Württemberg in Stuttgart, and they'd apparently been following CADA some time, because we started Unreal Engine a lot sooner than most other schools did. Like, it was, Unreal Engine's fun. I know Abertay did it before that, but I don't know if they actually did any teaching. But CADA was actively teaching in Unreal Engine before Unreal 5 and before a lot of the hype came out, because there was an idea that this would probably become big soon enough, not just like Unity, but a lot more accessible to 3D artists. So doing things like that and making sure that your students and the us as a school, our output, has we're doing our best to make sure that our students have a leg up as soon as they hit the industry, which is great. And that is what a school should do. Yep. All right. So I think I've successfully prattled on and tangented for a while. If nobody has any closing questions, please do ask questions, and feel free to ask questions underway. If you don't understand something, I'm clearly doing something wrong, and I need to be able to reformulate that to tell you it better, so you do understand it. Because that's what a teacher does, right? So, also for next time when we're texture painting, ask questions when you have them, because it's the only way I can make sure, if you're confused, that you actually get the things you need to get. And if nobody else has any questions, I think we'll just call it here and say thank you for tonight, and I will see you next week. More. Yeah, just catching up to the delay, which is always a weird one. Let's see what that looks like rendered. It's probably going to crash the GPU, but yeah. Thank you. All right. Well, in that case, thank you, everybody. Again, my name is Kjellfe Bruno, and I will see you next week for some texturing. We will be going back to the Dragon Slayer that we did last week, and we will texture the living hell out of that thing.